The landing gear deployed with a mechanical groan that vibrated through the floorboards of the first-class cabin, a sound that mirrored the twisting knot in Amara's stomach. She stared out the oval window, watching the gray, sprawling metropolis of Seoul rise up to meet them through the breaking clouds. It had been 5 years. 5 years of running, 5 years of hiding, and 5 years of telling herself that she would never, ever step foot in this city again. Yet here she was, clutching the armrest as if it were the only thing keeping her from falling apart. "Mommy, look! The buildings are touching the sky!" The excited squeal broke through her trance. Amara turned to the seat beside her, where 4-year-old Luna was pressing her face and hands against the glass, leaving small, foggy smudges. Beside Luna, her twin brother Leo sat quietly, his intense, dark eyes scanning the cabin with a seriousness that made Amara's heart ache. He looked so much like him, too much like him. "Yes, baby," Amara whispered, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "It's a very big city." "Is this where the job is?" Leo asked, looking up from his tablet. His hair, a riot of soft, dark curls, framed a face that was a perfect blend of Amara's deep melanin and the sharp, aristocratic features of a man she had spent half a decade trying to scrub from her memory. "Yes, Leo, this is where the job is," Amara said, unbuckling her seatbelt as the chime signaled their arrival. "We're going to build a beautiful hotel, remember? Just for 3 months. Then we go back to New York." "Just 3 months," she repeated silently. "Get in, design the Pyeongchang resort, collect the check that will secure their future, and get out." The plan was airtight. She was Amara Williams now, a renowned architect with accolades in Architectural Digest and a reputation for steel-nerved professionalism. She wasn't the naive 22-year-old art student who had fallen foolishly, recklessly in love with the heir to the Kang Empire. The client knew her only by her portfolio. Seoul was a city of 10 million people. The chances of running into Do-yeon were statistically zero. Or so she told herself as she herded the twins through the gleaming expanse of Incheon International Airport. "Stay close," she murmured, gripping Luna's small hand while Leo held onto the strap of her tote bag. The arrivals hall was a sensory overload of announcements in Korean, the squeak of luggage wheels, and the humid rush of air from the automatic doors. People stared. They always stared, but here it felt heavier. A tall, elegant black woman in a cream-colored trench coat, flanked by 2 mixed-race children who looked like living dolls. Amara kept her chin high, her sunglasses shielding her eyes, ignoring the whispers and the lingering gazes. She was used to standing out, but today every glance felt like an interrogation. "Miss Williams?" A young man in a sharp black suit held up a tablet with her name displayed in bold letters. He bowed deeply as she approached. "I am Driver Kim from Hanso Construction," he said in perfect English. "Welcome to Seoul." "Thank you," Amara said, her voice steady. "We have quite a bit of luggage." As the driver loaded their bags into the back of a sleek black van, Amara strapped the twins into their car seats. Luna was already singing a song she'd made up about airplanes, but Leo was silent, staring out the window at the passing highway signs. "Mommy," Leo said softly, "why are the letters on the signs funny?" "It's Korean, Leo. Remember I taught you how to say hello?" "Annyeonghaseyo," he pronounced carefully, the accent eerily native. Amara's breath hitched. Do-yoon had sounded just like that, precise, deep, thoughtful. Amara closed the door, her hands trembling. She needed to pull it together. She couldn't let the ghosts of this city haunt her before she'd even unpacked. The apartment Hanso Construction had provided was in Gangnam, a high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Han River. It was luxurious, cold, and impersonal, exactly what she needed. She spent the first night distractedly unpacking while the new nanny, a kind middle-aged woman named Mrs. Park, helped settle the children. "They are beautiful, Miss Williams," Mrs. Park said, folding Leo's tiny t-shirts. "They look very Korean." Amara froze, a stack of blueprints in her hand. "They have a Korean father," she said curtly, offering no further explanation. "He is not in the picture." Mrs. Park nodded quickly, sensing the boundary. "I understand. I will prepare dinner." That night, Amara couldn't sleep. She stood by the window, watching the lights of the city reflect off the dark water of the river. Somewhere out there, amidst the neon glow and the endless traffic, was Do-yoon. Was he happy? Was he married to that heiress his mother had shoved in his face 5 years ago? The woman who looked perfect on paper? The woman who didn't have Amara's complications? She touched her locket around her neck, hidden beneath her silk pajama top. Inside was a tiny picture of the twins, but behind it, tucked away where no one could see, was a torn corner of a photo booth strip, just Do-yoon's smiling eyes. "I hate you," she whispered to the empty room, but the tear that tracked down her cheek betrayed her. "I hate you for making me run." The next morning, Amara transformed. She pulled her thick curls back into a severe, professional bun. She applied her makeup with military precision, accentuating her eyes and the sharp curve of her lips. She donned a tailored emerald green power suit that screamed authority. "Mommy looks scary," Luna giggled as she ate her cereal. "Mommy looks like a boss," Amara corrected, kissing the top of her head. "Mrs. Park is going to take you to the park today. Be good. Do not run off." "Yes, Mommy," they chorused. The ride to the Hansum headquarters was a blur of traffic and nerves. Amara reviewed her presentation on her tablet, forcing her brain to focus on structural integrity, sustainable materials, and occupancy rates. When she stepped out of the car in front of the towering glass edifice in the business district, she took a deep breath of the smoggy air. "You are Amara Williams. You are the best architect in New York. You belong here." She breezed through security and took the elevator to the top floor. The conference room was vast, with a polished mahogany table that looked long enough to land a plane on. 3 executives were already seated, older men in gray suits who looked up with mild surprise as she entered. "Gentlemen," Amara said, setting her briefcase down, "I'm Amara Williams. Shall we get started, or are we waiting for the CEO?" One of the men, a VP named Mr. Choi, checked his watch. "Director Kang is running a few minutes late. He insists on overseeing this project personally. It is special to him." Amara nodded, connecting her laptop to the projector. "Understood." She was 5 minutes into setting up her slides when the heavy double doors swang open. "Apologies, the traffic on the bridge was a nightmare." The voice hit her like a physical blow to the chest. Deep, resonant, unmistakable. Amara froze with her back to the door. Her hand hovered over the HDMI cable. Every instinct in her body screamed at her to run, to dive under the table, to vanish into thin air. Slowly, agonizingly, she turned around. He was walking into the room, head down as he buttoned his suit jacket. He looked different, older. His jaw was sharper, the softness of his youth replaced by a hard, unyielding edge. He wore a navy 3-piece suit that fit his broad shoulders perfectly. His hair was styled back, revealing the forehead she used to kiss. Kang Do-yoon. He looked up, expecting to see a stranger. Their eyes locked. The room went silent. The hum of the air conditioning, the distant traffic, the clicking of pens, it all vanished. There was only the roar of blood in Amara's ears. Do-yoon stopped mid-step. His face, usually a mask of indifferent composure, crumbled into shock. His eyes widened, darting over her face as if checking for a hallucination. He paled, the color draining from his skin. "Amara?" The name was a whisper, a question, and an accusation all at once. "Mr. Kang." Mr. Choi looked between them, confused. "You know Miss Williams?" Do-yoon didn't answer. He couldn't breathe. He stared at the woman who had haunted his dreams for 1,865 days. The woman who had vanished without a trace, leaving a letter that said, "I'm sorry," and a hole in his chest that no amount of whiskey or work could fill. She was here, real, and she looked more beautiful than he had ever seen her. Amara dug her fingernails into her palm, the sharp pain grounding her. She lifted her chin, channeling every ounce of strength she possessed. "Mr. Kang," she said, her voice icy and detached, though her heart was hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. "It's been a long time. I believe we have a hotel to design." Do-yoon's eyes narrowed. The shock was replaced by a sudden intense flash of anger. He walked slowly toward the head of the table, his gaze never leaving hers. He moved like a predator, controlled and dangerous. "Miss Williams," he said, testing the name like a curse. "I wasn't aware the architect for the Pyeongchang project was you." "My firm sent my portfolio," Amara said, her throat dry. "I assumed you approved it." "I approved the designs," Do-yoon said, stopping just a few feet from her. He smelled of sandalwood and rain, the same scent that used to cling to her sheets. "I didn't look at the biography. If I had known—" He let the sentence hang in the air, heavy with threat. "If you have a concern about my ability to deliver," Amara said, forcing herself to hold his gaze. "I can step down. My partner can take over." "No," Do-yoon said sharply. "You signed a contract, Miss Williams, and in this business, we take contracts very seriously. You aren't going anywhere." He pulled out the chair at the head of the table and sat down, his eyes dark and unreadable. "Sit down," he commanded the room, though he was looking only at her. "Show me what you've been doing for the last 5 years." Amara sat. Her legs felt like Gilly. She opened her mouth to begin the presentation, but her mind was screaming only one thing. He hates me. And if he finds out about the twins, he will destroy me. Before we find out just how dangerous this game of cat and mouse will get, make sure you hit that subscribe button. You do not want to miss what happens when Do-yoon gets suspicious. Now, let's get into the next part. The rain in Seoul was different from the rain in New York. In New York, it was an inconvenience, a gray curtain that made cabs scarce and sidewalks treacherous. In Seoul, it was a mood, heavy, relentless, and suffocating. It drummed against the roof of the black Mercedes sedan as Amara stared out at the blurred neon lights of the Mapo Bridge, her reflection a pale ghost against the glass. Beside her, Kang Do-yeon typed furiously on his tablet, the blue light illuminating the sharp angle of his jaw. He hadn't said a word to her in 20 minutes, not since he had practically ordered her into his car for a site inspection that could have easily waited for a sunny day. It had been 3 days since the boardroom reunion, 3 days of hell. "You missed a turn," Amara said, her voice tight. "The site entrance is back there." Do-yeon didn't look up. "I know where I'm going." "Then where are we going?" Amara demanded, her patience fraying. "This isn't the route to Pyeongchang-dong." "We're going to dinner," he said simply, finally locking the tablet and sliding it into the seat pocket. He turned to look at her, his dark eyes unreadable. "You can't inspect a foundation in a monsoon, Miss Williams, and my mother taught me never to let a guest go hungry." "I'm not a guest," Amara snapped, turning her body toward him. "I'm your architect, and I have work to do back at the office." "The office is closed," Do-yoon countered, his voice smooth and dangerous. "And you are my employee, which means you are on my time. Unless you have somewhere else to be? Someone waiting for you, perhaps?" The question hung in the air, sharp as a blade. Amara's heart skipped a beat. The twins. Mrs. Park was expecting her home by 7. It was already 6:30. "I have a life, Do-yeon," she said, slipping into the informal address before she could stop herself. The sound of his name on her tongue made his eyes widen slightly. "Something you clearly don't respect." "I respected you once," he said, his voice dropping to a low rumble that vibrated in the small space between them. He leaned in closer, invading her personal space. "I respected you enough to plan a future with you. I respected you enough to defy my family for you. And how did you repay that respect, Amara? You vanished, like a thief in the night." "I had to go," she whispered, the fight draining out of her. "You don't understand." "Then make me understand," he challenged, his gaze dropping to her lips for a fraction of a second before snapping back to her eyes. "Tell me why you left me standing at Namsan Tower like a fool while you ran off to America? Was it him? The man you were meeting?" Amara frowned. "What man?" "Don't play innocent," Do-yeon scoffed, turning away as the car slowed to a halt in front of an exclusive restaurant in Cheongdam-dong. He turned to look at her, his dark eyes unreadable. "The one my mother told me about, the one you were really in love with." Amara felt a cold chill run down her spine. His mother, of course. The chairwoman hadn't just threatened Amara, she had poisoned Do-yeon with lies to ensure he never looked for her. She told him Amara was cheating. "Your mother," Amara started, her voice trembling with a mixture of rage and grief, "is a very creative storyteller." The driver opened the door, cutting off the conversation. Do-yeon stepped out into the rain, unfurling a large black umbrella. He held it out, waiting for her. For a moment, Amara hesitated. It was such a familiar gesture, Do-yeon protecting her from the elements, shielding her from the world. She took his hand to step out, and the jolt of electricity that shot through her palm was so strong she almost pulled away. His grip tightened, steadying her. "Careful," he murmured near her ear. "The ground is slippery." Inside, the restaurant was a sanctuary of warm wood and soft lighting, smelling of grilled galbi and sesame oil. The hostess bowed low, recognizing Do-yeon immediately, and led them to a private room at the back, separated from the main dining hall by sliding paper doors. They sat on cushions on the floor, a low table between them. It was intimate, too intimate. Amara tucked her legs beneath her, conscious of how close his knees were to hers. "So," Do-yeon said, after ordering a bottle of expensive soju and enough beef to feed an army. He loosened his tie, the first crack in his armor she'd seen all week. "Tell me about New York. Tell me about this Amara Williams who wins awards and builds skyscrapers." "She works hard," Amara said, accepting the small glass he poured for her. "She focuses on her career." "And her family?" Do-yeon pressed, watching her over the rim of his glass. "Is she happy? Is her husband a good man?" Amara took a shot of the bitter liquor to steady her nerves. "I'm not married, Do-yeon." The silence that followed was deafening. Do-yeon set his glass down slowly. "You're not?" "No." "But..." He looked genuinely confused. "My mother said you left to marry him, that you were pregnant with his child." Amara choked on her breath. Pregnant. He knew part of the truth, but twisted into a lie. She scrambled for a safe answer. "Relationships don't always work out. I'm single. I live alone." "Alone?" Do-yeon repeated, the words sounding like hope. "So there is no one." "No one," Amara lied, her heart hammering against her ribs. Just then, her phone, which she had placed face down on the table, began to vibrate violently. A cheerful, high-pitched ringtone, the theme song from a popular cartoon the twins loved, filled the tense silence of the room. Amara snatched it up, panic flaring in her chest. The screen lit up with a video call request. The caller ID read, "My heart." "You should answer that," Do-yeon said, his eyes narrowing at the affectionate contact name. "It might be important. Or is my heart just a work contact?" "It's my sister," Amara stammered, her thumb hovering over the decline button. "She worries." "Answer it," Do-yeon commanded softly. "I'll be quiet." Amara knew she couldn't decline without looking suspicious. She angled the phone away from him, praying the volume was down, and tapped the green button. "Hello?" she whispered. The screen filled with the chaotic, tear-streaked face of Mrs. Park. "Miss Williams, I am so sorry," the nanny wailed, her voice shrill and loud in the quiet room. "Mrs. Park? What's wrong?" Amara asked, her maternal instinct overriding her caution. She forgot to whisper. "It's Leo," Mrs. Park cried, panning the camera down. Amara's blood ran cold. On the screen, 4-year-old Leo was sitting on the floor of the apartment, holding his knee, sobbing. "Mommy!" Leo screamed, his face pressed close to the camera. "Mommy, it hurts! I fell off the chair! I want you!" The word "mommy" echoed in the small private room like a gunshot. Amara froze. She slowly lifted her eyes. Do-yeon was staring at her. He wasn't looking at the phone, he was looking at her face. His expression had shifted from suspicion to absolute shock. "Mommy?" he whispered. "I have to go," Amara said, her voice shaking. "Mrs. Park, put ice on it. I'm coming home right now." She hung up the phone and shoved it in her purse, her hands trembling so badly she dropped her napkin. "I have to leave," she said, abruptly standing up. "Family emergency." "Sit down," Do-yeon said. He didn't shout, but the authority in his voice was absolute. "My nephew is hurt," Amara lied, desperate to escape. "My sister is away. I'm watching him." "Stop it," Do-yeon cut her off, standing up slowly. He towered over her in the small room. "That boy called you mommy. He looked like..." He trailed off, his mind racing. He had only seen a glimpse of the screen, a blur of a child's face. But the voice? And the timing? He's confused, Amara said, backing toward the door. He's 4. He calls everyone mommy sometimes. I really have to go, Doyun. 4? Doyun repeated. He did the math instantly. 5 years ago she left. 9 months later, he stepped around the table, blocking her path to the door. Amara, look at me. Move, she pleaded, tears pricking her eyes. Please. Is he yours? Doyun asked, his voice cracking. Do you have a son? Yes, she whispered, knowing she couldn't deny the existence of the child now. Yes, I have a son, but he has nothing to do with you. Is he the other man's child? Doyun demanded, gripping her shoulders. The man you left me for? Yes, she shouted, the lie tearing her throat apart. Yes, he's someone else's. Now let me go to him. Doyun stared at her for a long, agonizing moment. He was searching for the lie in her eyes, but her fear looked like guilt. Slowly, he released her shoulders. He looked defeated, broken. Go, he said, turning his back to her. Go take care of your son. Amara didn't wait. She slid the door open and ran. She ran through the restaurant, past the bowing hostess, and out into the pouring rain. She didn't wait for the driver. She hailed a taxi on the street, soaking her expensive suit, and dove into the back seat. Gangnam, she choked to the driver. Please hurry. As the taxi sped away, Amara buried her face in her hands and sobbed. She had bought herself time, but at what cost? She had seen the look in Doyun's eyes when she said the child belonged to another man. It was the look of a man whose heart had just been broken for the second time. Back in the restaurant, Doyun stood by the window watching her taxi disappear into the rain. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. Secretary Kim? He said, his voice void of emotion. I want you to find out everything about Amara Williams' life in New York. I want birth certificates, I want hospital records, and I want to know who the father is. Yes, Director. Shall I prioritize this? Drop everything else, Doyun said, watching his reflection in the glass. She's lying to me. I don't know what she's hiding, but I saw that boy's face for a second, and I need to know why he has my eyes. If you're enjoying the drama and the suspense, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Amara burst through the front door of the apartment, water dripping from her hair onto the polished marble floor. Her chest heaved as she kicked off her heels, the adrenaline from the restaurant still coursing through her veins. Leo? She called out, her voice cracking. Mommy! Leo came running down the hallway, a large bandage with a cartoon character on his knee, followed closely by a frantic-looking Mrs. Park. He didn't seem traumatized. In fact, he was holding a half-eaten cookie and smiling. Amara dropped to her knees, ignoring the wet clothes clinging to her skin, and pulled him into a fierce hug. She buried her face in his neck, inhaling the scent of baby shampoo and innocence. I'm here, baby. Mommy's here, she whispered, rocking him back and forth. Does it hurt? Only a little bit, Leo said bravely, patting her wet hair. Why are you crying, Mommy? Is it raining on your face, too? Amara let out a watery laugh, wiping her eyes. Yes, Leo, it's just rain. Luna toddled out from the living room, carrying a stuffed rabbit. Mommy is wet, she announced, joining the hug. Surrounded by her children, the panic began to subside, replaced by a cold, hard dread. Do-yoon knew. He didn't know the whole truth, but he knew enough to be dangerous. He knew she had a son, he knew the timeline, and the way he had looked at her, that wasn't the look of a man who was going to let it go. Mrs. Park, Amara said, standing up and smoothing down her skirt. We need to be careful. From now on, no more video calls when I'm at work. And if anyone at all asks about the children, you tell them nothing. Do you understand? The nanny looked alarmed but nodded vigorously. Yes, Miss Williams, I understand. Is someone looking for them? Just an old friend who doesn't need to know my business, Amara said, her voice tight. We're going to the Han River Park on Saturday. It's public, it's crowded, we'll be safe there. Across the city, in a penthouse that felt more like a museum than a home, Kang Do-yeon sat in the dark. The only light came from the glowing screen of his laptop. His private investigator had been fast, terrified by the cold rage in Do-yeon's voice earlier that evening. The email attachment was open. Subject, Amara Williams, background check. Do-Yun scrolled through the document, his eyes scanning for one specific detail. Name, Leo Williams. Date of birth, August 14th, 2021. Name, Luna Williams. Date of birth, August 14th, 2021. Twins. She had twins. He did the math again, though he already knew the answer. August, count back 9 months, November. She had left in late October. His hand clenched around the whiskey glass until his knuckles turned white. She was pregnant when she left. She had stood in the rain at the airport, carrying his children, and she hadn't said a word. But then his eyes fell on the next line. Father, unknown. Unknown. Do-Yun slammed the laptop shut, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the empty room. Unknown, he muttered, standing up and pacing the floor. She said it was another man, the man she loved. But if she loved him, why wasn't his name on the birth certificate? Why was she alone in New York? Why did she look so terrified when he asked about the father? He walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, looking out at the city lights. He remembered the way she used to look at him, the way she used to trace the line of his jaw with her thumb. That wasn't a lie. He knew people. He could spot a fake from a mile away, and Amara Williams was a terrible liar. Saturday, he whispered to the reflection in the glass. Secretary Kim said she takes them to the park on Saturdays. He wasn't going to send a private investigator this time. He was going to see for himself. He needed to look into that boy's eyes one more time. Saturday morning arrived with a burst of sunshine that seemed to mock Amara's anxiety. The Han River Park was teeming with families, couples on tandem bicycles, and elderly people flying kites. It was loud, colorful, and chaotic, the perfect place to blend in. Amara spread a large picnic blanket under the shade of a cherry blossom tree. She wore oversized sunglasses and a wide-brimmed hat, looking every bit the incognito celebrity. "Stay where I can see you," she warned the twins as she unpacked sandwiches. "Do not go near the water." "Okay, Mommy," they shouted in unison, immediately sprinting toward a group of kids playing soccer nearby. Amara watched them like a hawk. Every tall man with broad shoulders made her heart jump. Every black car that drove past the parking lot made her flinch. She was being paranoid. Do-Yun was the CEO of one of the largest conglomerates in South Korea. He didn't spend his Saturdays stalking ex-girlfriends in public parks. He was probably playing golf with politicians or reviewing contracts. She forced herself to relax, leaning back on her hands. The breeze was cool, carrying the scent of river water and fried chicken. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine a different life, a life where she hadn't run, a life where Do-Yun was here, sitting beside her, laughing as Leo tried to dribble a soccer ball. "Goal!" a deep voice shouted from the field. Amara sat up, her heart hammering against her ribs. That voice. She scanned the field. 50 yards away, a man in a casual gray hoodie and sunglasses was kicking a ball back to a group of children. He moved with an athletic grace that was unmistakable. He high-fived a little boy and then jogged, straight toward where Leo was standing. It was him. Panic, cold and sharp, seized her. She scrambled to her feet, knocking over her water bottle. "Leo! Luna! Time to go!" She screamed, but her voice was lost in the noise of the park. Do-Yun hadn't seen her yet. He was focused on the boy. He had spotted the curly hair from the parking lot. He slowed his jog to a walk, his heart pounding in his ears. He needed to be sure. He needed to see the face close up. Leo, oblivious to the tension, looked up as the tall stranger approached. The ball rolled to Do-Yun's feet. He stopped it with the toe of his expensive sneaker. "Hey there," Do-Yun said in English, crouching so he was eye level with the child. "Is this yours?" Leo nodded, his big eyes wide with curiosity. "Yes, thank you, mister." Do-Yun felt the air leave his lungs. Up close, the resemblance was terrifying. It wasn't just the eyes, it was the shape of the nose, the way the child's eyebrow quirked up when he was confused, a habit Do-Yun had possessed since childhood. "What's your name?" Do-yeon asked, his voice rough with emotion. He reached out, his hand trembling slightly, resisting the urge to touch the boy's cheek. "I'm Leo," the boy chirped. "I'm 4. "Leo," Do-yeon repeated, the name tasting like ash and honey. You look very strong, Leo." "My daddy is strong too," Leo said confidently, puffing out his chest. Do-yeon froze. "Your daddy?" "Yeah, but he's not here," Leo said, looking down at his shoes. "Mommy says he's working very far away." "Leo!" Amara's voice cut through the air. Do-yeon looked up to see her sprinting across the grass, her hat gone, her face pale with terror. She didn't look like a poised architect. She looked like a mother lioness defending her cub. "Get away from him!" she shrieked, skidding to a halt and yanking Leo behind her legs. Luna ran up a second later, clutching Amara's skirt. "Warning me," Do-yeon haffed, a harsh, broken sound. He took a step forward. "Look at him, Amara. He has my face. He has my mother's chin. Do you think I'm blind? Do you think I'm stupid?" "I don't care what you think." Amara grabbed both children, picking Luna up and dragging Leo by the hand. "We're leaving. Don't follow us." "Amara, stop!" Do-yeon shouted, reaching for her arm. "Don't touch me!" she screamed, pulling away with such force that she almost fell. The fear in her eyes stopped him. It wasn't just anger, it was genuine, primal fear. It hit him then. She wasn't keeping the secret to hurt him. She was terrified of him, or rather, terrified of what he represented. His family, his mother, the power that had crushed her 5 years ago. He let his hand drop. "Amara, please, just tell me the truth." "The truth is you chose your world and I chose mine," she sobbed, backing away. "Stay in yours, Do-yeon, please." She turned and ran toward the parking lot, the twins crying in confusion. Do-yeon didn't chase her. He stood rooted to the spot, watching the only woman he had ever loved run away from him for the second time. But this time, he knew why. He pulled out his phone, his fingers shaking as he dialed. "Secretary Kim?" he said, his voice deadly calm. "Cancel my meetings, cancel everything, and get my car. I'm going to her apartment." "Director, is everything all right?" "No," Do-yeon said, watching the black van peel out of the parking lot. "I just found out I have children, and I'm going to bring my family home." Amara drove like a maniac, her hands gripping the steering wheel so hard her knuckles turned white. The twins were wailing in the back seat, confused and scared by their mother's panic. It's okay, she chanted, more to herself than them. "We're packing. We're leaving tonight. We'll go to Tokyo or Singapore, anywhere but here." She pulled up to the apartment building, abandoning the car in the loading zone. She rushed the kids into the elevator, pressing the button for the penthouse repeatedly as if that would make it move faster. Inside the apartment, she went into a frenzy. Suitcases were thrown open, clothes were tossed in haphazard ablaze. "Mrs. Park," she yelled, "get the kids' passports, now!" "Miss Williams, what is happening?" she cried, caught up in the panic. "We have to leave. He knows, he knows." Amara was shoving Leo's dinosaur pajamas into a bag when the doorbell rang. It wasn't a polite ring, it was a long, insistent press. Amara froze. The room went silent. "Don't answer it," she whispered. A fist pounded on the heavy oak door. "Amara, open this door!" It was Do-yeon. He hadn't waited. He had followed her. "Go away," she screamed, backing the children into the corner of the living room. "I'll call the police." "Call them," Do-yeon roared through the wood. "Call the police. Call the press. I don't care. I am not leaving until I speak to my children." The handle jiggled violently. Then, silence. Amara held her breath. Had he gone? The electronic lock disengaged. Amara's eyes widened in horror. The code. He owned the building. Hanso Construction built this tower. He had the master override. The door swung open. Do-yeon stood in the doorway, chest heaving, his hair disheveled, looking like a man on the edge of sanity. He stepped inside, closing the door firmly behind him. The lock clicked shut with a sound of finality. He didn't look at Amara. He looked past her, to the 2 small children clinging to her legs. He dropped to his knees right there on the entryway mat. "Leo," he said, his voice breaking into a sob. "Luna." The twins stared at him. The anger was gone from his face, replaced by a devastating vulnerability. He held out his hands, palms up, surrendering. "I'm not going to hurt you," he choked out, tears spilling down his cheeks. I just wanted to see you." Amara felt her legs give out. She slid down the wall to the floor, covering her face with her hands. The fight was over. The secret was out. And as she watched her son tentatively step forward toward the man who shared his face, she knew there was no running from this. The secret is finally out, and Do-yoon has breached the fortress. But how will he react to the reason why Amara kept them hidden? And what will his mother do when she finds out? You do not want to miss the finale. Hit that like button if your heart is racing, and subscribe for the final part. The silence in the apartment was heavy, broken only by the ragged sound of Amara's breathing and the soft pitter-patter of rain against the glass. Do-yoon remained on his knees in the entryway, his expensive suit trousers pressing into the marble, a posture of absolute surrender that shattered the image of the cold, untouchable CEO she had known for the last week. Leo, brave and curious, took a small step forward. He tilted his head, his dark curls bouncing, and looked into the face of the man who mirrored him. "Why are you crying, mister?" Leo asked, his small voice echoing in the large room. "Did you fall down too?" Do-yoon let out a choked sound that was half laugh, half sob. He reached out a trembling hand, hovering it near Leo's cheek, but afraid to make contact, as if the boy were an illusion that might vanish at his touch. "No," Do-yoon whispered, his voice thick with unshed tears. "I didn't fall. I found something I lost a long time ago." Luna, sensing the shift in the room, waddled out from behind Amara's legs. She held out her stuffed rabbit. "You can hold Bunny. He makes the ouchies go away." Do-yoon took the worn plush toy with a reverence usually reserved for billion-dollar contracts. He looked up at Amara, his eyes red-rimmed and pleading. "Amara," he rasped, "please, tell me, why did you run? Why did you hide them from me? Did you hate me that much?" Amara felt the anger drain out of her, leaving only a hollow ache. She slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor, pulling her knees to her chest. "Hate you?" she whispered, wiping a tear from her cheek. "Do-yoon, I loved you more than my own life. That's why I left." "That doesn't make sense," Do-yoon said, his voice cracking. He shifted, sitting back on his heels, ignoring the discomfort. "If you loved me, you would have stayed. You would have told me about the babies." "I tried," I cried out. "I went to the tower, Do-yoon. I went there that night to tell you everything, to tell you I was pregnant, but you weren't there." "I was there," Do-yoon insisted, his brow furrowing. "No," Amara shook her head violently. "I saw you. I saw you with her, that heiress, Minji. Your mother sent me a photo the next morning, you and her having champagne. She told me you were celebrating your engagement. She said you were just playing with the foreign girl, but you were marrying your own kind." Do-yoon went still, the color drained from his face, leaving him ghostly pale. "My mother," he whispered, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. "She told you I was engaged?" "I saw her show me the announcement," Amara sobbed. "She said if I stayed, I would be nothing but a mistress, a shame to your family. She offered me money to get an abortion and leave. I didn't take the money, Do-yoon. I just took my dignity and ran." A low, guttural growl rose in Do-yoon's throat. He closed his eyes, his hands balling into fists so tight his knuckles turned white. The pieces were falling into place. The business dinner his mother had forced him to attend that night, the photographers who had accidentally been there, the lie she had told him that Amara had taken a payout and left with another man. "I never touched her," Do-yoon said, his voice deadly quiet. "I never proposed to Minji. I broke off the arrangement the morning after you left. I told my mother I would never marry anyone but you. I spent 2 years looking for you, Amara. 2 years." Amara looked up, her breath hitching. You looked for me?" "I hired investigators on 3 continents," Do-yoon said, looking at the twins who were now sitting on the floor, playing with his watch. "But my mother, she must have paid them off to hide your tracks. She stole 5 years from us, Amara. She stole my children's first steps, their first words." He reached out and finally, gently, cupped Leo's face. The boy leaned into the touch, instinctively recognizing the bond. "I didn't know," Amara whispered, fresh tears spilling over. "I thought you moved on. I thought you forgot me." "I could never forget you," Do-yoon said, his eyes locking onto hers with a burning intensity. "You are the only thing I have ever wanted." The tender moment was shattered by the sharp ringing of Amara's phone. She ignored it, but then the landline in the apartment began to ring. Then the doorbell buzzed again, this time from the lobby. Do-yoon stood up, his face hardening into the mask of the ruthless CEO. He checked his phone. 17 missed calls from Chairwoman Kong. "She knows," Do-yoon said, his voice cold as ice. "What do we do?" Amara panicked, rising in her chest again. She scrambled to her feet, gathering the twins. "She'll try to take them, Do-yoon. She threatened to take them if I ever came back." "Let her try," Do-yoon said, walking over to Amara. He didn't touch her, but he stood between her and the door, a human shield. "You aren't the scared student anymore, Amara, and I am not the obedient son. This ends today." The confrontation didn't happen at the apartment. It happened the next night at the grand opening of the Pyeongchang resort. The ballroom was a sea of flashing cameras, diamonds, and black tuxedos. Seoul's elite had gathered to see the unveiling of the Kong Group's newest masterpiece, but the tension in the air was palpable. Rumors were swirling. The chairwoman had been seen arguing with her son in the lobby earlier that day. Backstage, in the green room, Amara stood in front of a full-length mirror. She wasn't wearing a business suit. She was wearing a gown of shimmering gold silk that hugged her curves, her hair cascading down her back in glorious natural curls. "You look like a queen," a deep voice said. Amara turned. Do-yoon stood in the doorway, holding Leo and Luna by the hands. The twins were dressed in miniature formal wear, Leo in a tiny tuxedo, Luna in a gold dress that matched her mother's. "Are you sure about this?" Amara asked, her hands shaking as she smoothed Luna's hair. "Once we go out there, there's no going back. Your mother will be furious. The stock prices—" "Let them fall," Do-yoon said, walking over and kissing her forehead. "I can build another company. I can't build another family." He held out his arm. "Ready?" "Ready," Amara breathed. Out in the ballroom, Chairwoman Kong stood at the podium. She was a formidable woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that could cut glass. She smiled tightly at the press. "And now," she announced, "my son, CEO Kong Do-yoon, will present the vision for our future, a future built on tradition and legacy." Do-yoon walked onto the stage. The applause was polite. He stood at the microphone, looking out at the hundreds of faces. He saw his mother in the front row, looking smug. She expected him to announce the merger. She expected him to fall in line. "Thank you, Chairwoman," Do-yoon said, his voice amplified across the silent room. "This hotel was built on the concept of home, but for a long time, I didn't know what that word meant." He paused, looking toward the curtain. "I thought home was a place," he continued, "but I realized home is people. 5 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I let my home walk away because I was too weak to fight for her." The chairwoman's smile faltered. She stood up, signaling for the sound engineer to cut the mic, but Do-yoon ignored her. "I am not making that mistake again," Do-yoon declared, his voice ringing with power. "Please welcome the lead architect of this project, the woman who designed this building, and the woman who owns my heart, Amara Williams." The curtains parted. Amara stepped out, the gold dress catching the stage lights. The crowd gasped. A collective murmur rippled through the room. "And," Do-yoon added, his voice softening as he extended his hand to her, "our children, Leo and Luna Kong." The twins walked out, shy but smiling, holding Amara's hands. The silence in the room was absolute. Then, chaos. Camera flashes exploded like fireworks. Reporters shouted questions. Chairwoman Kong stood frozen, her face a mask of shock and fury. She looked at the mixed-race children, undeniably Kong's, undeniably beautiful, and then at the defiant look on her son's face. She sank back into her chair, defeated. She knew, in that moment, she had lost. The public would eat this up. A secret romance? Twins? A reunion? It was the story of the century. Do-yoon didn't look at the press. He walked to Amara, took her hand, and pulled her close. He picked up Leo while Amara held Luna. "This is my family," Do-yoon said, into the microphone, finality in his tone. "And anyone who has a problem with that can answer to me." He looked at Amara, and for the first time in 5 years, his smile reached his eyes. "Let's go home," he whispered to her, away from the mic. "Yes," Amara smiled, tears of joy glistening in the stage lights. "Let's go home." 1 year later. The autumn wind whipped around the observation deck of Namsan Tower, carrying the scent of roasted chestnuts and falling leaves. It was crowded, as always, with couples locking their plastic padlocks onto the railing, promising eternity. "Lift me up, Appa. I can't reach." Do-yoon laughed, hoisting 5-year-old Leo onto his shoulders. "All right, big man, find a good spot." Amara stood beside them, holding Luna, who was busy trying to stick a sticker on the railing. They looked like any other family, happy and loud.
Here, Leo shouted, snapping a bright blue lock onto the fence, right next to the gold one. Do-yoon set him down and wrapped his arm around Amara's waist, pulling her into his side. She rested her head on his shoulder, looking at the lock Leo had just placed. It sat next to an old weathered padlock, the one they had placed there 6 years ago, before everything fell apart. "We missed our anniversary last time," Do-yoon murmured, kissing the top of her head. "We were a little busy, running away, misunderstandings, secret babies." "Never again," Do-yoon promised, turning her face toward him. "No more running." "No more secrets," Amara agreed. He kissed her then, a slow, deep kiss that tasted of redemption and peace. The tourists walked by, some recognizing the famous CEO and his wife Amara, snapping photos. But they didn't care. They were just Amara and Do-yoon, and this time